And welcome, everyone. I'm Bill Newell. Joining us here, we've got Phil Stacy, Nick Giannino, Nick Kukuru, and Matt Williams here from the Salem News, and of course, Nick Kukuru from the Gloucester Times. And gentlemen, I guess the big news story this week happened on Friday. This just yesterday, the MIAA making some rulings, if you will, decisions, maybe a better word, on fall two, which would include football and field hockey and so on. So, Matt, I know you were monitoring all of that on Friday. What are some of the highlights, or what do we know?
Well, the good news is that the players will not be holding hands when they go out to the coin toss. So that I expect that to really end the pandemic. That will save everyone's life. And no, I'm being facetious, of course, but it's really the game's not changing much, which I think makes sense. I mean, the reasoning that they gave was that, listen, if these kids are tackling each other anyway, then us mandating splits from linemen or outlawing double coverage really doesn't make a lot of sense because, you're still having contact with tackling, right? So I think certainly that was the right thing to do. All the changes are cosmetic, and I don't mean cosmetic in that they don't work. I mean cosmetic in that they don't affect the actual play between the stripes. So no locker rooms, huddles should be spread out, things like that. 45 players at the most on a game day. So that does affect some of the teams that we cover. Probably not.
Sounds crap, really.
Not any. Really just them. Really, I think at this point, I don't know how maybe Beverly's still got, if you include the freshmen in the 80s, maybe Peabody, but so there'd be some fringe kids that they're asking you not to dress extra kids. They're asking you to keep injured players off the sideline, to allow more room to space out. They increase the box where the players are supposed to go. I mean, this is stuff that people who just watch the games from the stands or on TV probably don't even notice, right? But the players aren't supposed to wander outside the 30-yard line. And, the referees oftentimes will yell at them if they do. Well, they've extended that all the way down to the 10 so that the players can spread out. They're going to insert what I call a TV timeout at the midpoint of every quarter so people can take a mask break, a water break.
TV timeout, I love it.
Things like that. So, we're ready to rock and roll. Spectators, they're going to decide later. They're going to look for guidance from the state on that. And it's probably going to be up to each individual school to determine that, just like it was for, the outdoor sports in the fall, soccer and field hockey and whatnot. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably going to be, one or two parents per player, or maybe even only per senior player. It's going to depend school to school, how big your stadium is and how comfortable your town is with the risk and whatnot. But, the good news is that we're ready to go. I think the one caveat that everybody has to keep in mind is the 15 practice days, which is mandatory in football because of the contact. That's very rigid. Every player has to have 15 practices before they can play in a game, not just a team. So, if you have a kid that has to quarantine in the second week of practice, he's not going to be able to probably play until week 2 or week 3 because he's got to get all those practices in. And, that's for safety. That's always been the case. That's why football starts early in August. You have to get used to the pads and the bumping and the hitting. I mean, your neck has to get used to wearing that helmet, to bowl up and be strong. And there was no appetite from the state to change that. And I think that's the right decision. The only problem we're going to have is if there's a massive blizzard that last week of February, and teams can't get outside and get those 15 practices in, the beginning of games could be delayed. The state has expressly prohibited indoor football activities. So that means you cannot practice in the gym if it snows or rains, and anything you do in the gym, calisthenics and whatnot, cannot count as one of those practice days to get ready for contact. So that's the only real hurdle I see potentially to this. And, it's certainly interesting because you can get into, well, if I'm in the gym in my helmet and I'm just throwing passes back and forth, how is that any different than playing a basketball game, right? And, the state has explored, hey, do we need to go back to the governor's people and say, hey, can we count this as a practice or whatever? But as it stands right now, they expressly said no football, no rugby indoors. And so that's really the only one little kind of hurdle I can see here. As long as we don't get one of those post Tom Brady Super Bowl, Massachusetts is closed on Mondays, blizzards. I would say there's going to be some football games on March 12th. Maybe Phil can weigh in or Kooks, if you've been talking to some ADs. I've been kind of asking around, hey guys, are we looking at, I think they're going to try to keep the Friday, Saturday structure so that everybody has, a week in between games. But I think we might see some early starts so that we're playing in the sun, which is a good thing. I've heard some schools are talking about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Some schools do want to play under the lights. They may do the 7s. Saturday afternoons could be spread out, 11, 12, 2, 4, whatever. So, looking at the calendar, there's 7 weeks possible for games. So I would imagine most of our schools are going to be trying to play 6 or 7 games, all in conference, as we've seen in these other sports and things like that. So I think now the next step is for the ADs to kind of, hammer out their schedules and start getting equipment passed out.
Are they planning on ending this season with the Thanksgiving rivalry games, or is that not going to be a thing at all this year?
I think it varies. Yeah, everyone's going to be different, I think, because they're trying to make sure that, like I heard the first draft of the NEC schedule, I heard they had 2 repeat games because they couldn't figure out how to get the opponents lined up right. So I think they're going to take another crack at it and try to get rid of that because that's a little silly. But I think it might depend, like I would imagine for, Danvers and Gloucester or Salem and Beverly, that would probably be an important thing. It'd be cool to have it last. I would imagine for, say, Peabody and Saugus, maybe not such a priority. So I don't know. I'm not sure that they've thought about that too much. I don't know. What have you guys heard?
I heard that they want to try to do that if at all possible. I think it's just a matter of, as you said, maybe working out a few kinks in the schedule. And I'm talking specifically about the conference here. But I think Marblehead Swampscott is a natural on that last game. Salem, Beverly, Danvers, Gloucester, as you said. That would have been classical English, but we have no idea if the city is going to allow them to play in this fall too. They haven't played all year, as we know. The Lynn Public Schools, I should say, haven't played all year. And B, they've made it known that they want to play a Greater Boston League schedule, even for football. So I think at this point, you kind of have to take the Lynn schools out of it. Maybe Winthrop plays Saugus if Peabody and Saugus isn't going to be a thing. Maybe Peabody plays Masco in that last game.
I was going to say Masco too. Yeah, Masco and Ahmed, it doesn't have an opponent for Thanksgiving.
Right.
So that's certainly a caveat there. And we also don't know at this point if the league splits into 2 divisions of 5. We don't know between Peabody and Swampscott which team's going to go with the South. So that could affect that last game as well. It'd be kind of natural. Well, I guess if everybody plays 5 and 5, somebody's going to have to cross over on that last game anyway.
I would think that in the Cape Ann League, they would keep all the rivalries because now that Masco's out, I think everything lines up for Thanksgiving. I mean, you have Ipswich, Hamilton, Wenham, Amesbury, Newburyport, Pentucket, Triton, Manchester, Essex, Georgetown. Who am I forgetting? Anybody? That's everybody, right? That's all 8.
That's it.
And from what I'm hearing with the Catholic Conference and the Catholic Central League, where there aren't enough teams for everyone to play at least, 6 or 7 games, they're either going to double up or, as we've already seen the Catholic Central League do in the fall, and they're planning on doing it in the winter, some kind of maybe little postseason tournament where you have the team that finishes in first after 5 games plays the team that finished, 6th or 5th or whatever. The top 4 get buys and they play something like that. So I think it's good that there's a chance that some schools could play other league schools twice. Maybe not the worst thing in the world, to be honest with you. Even if you wanted to explore that in the conference, there may be some more competitive games that way, as opposed to what you would appear, looking on paper based on strengths of the teams and how many players they expect to have in recent history. You could probably look at some matchups and say, oh boy, that could be a blowout. So maybe instead of pitting Team A against Team Z, you have Team A play Team B, maybe say in the first week, and then again in the 6th week. I mean, Is that a big deal? I don't think so.
I wonder if Winthrop will be able to play Revere at all.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe
And,
not
you know,
this year.
Just off the top of my head too, going back to what Phil said last week about the GBL, the Lynn schools didn't get to play fall. Fall 2 is not just for football, right? You can play anything you didn't
Correct.
play. So
Yeah.
the Lynn schools didn't play soccer or field hockey. So it would make sense if they're allowed to do that in this fall too, to go with the GBL. And then maybe then you do just send them there for the spring, because it'd be kind of strange. You know, let's say I go to Lynn and I play girls soccer and softball. And my girls soccer fall 2, I play the GBL, and then softball I come back and play the NEC again. That's a little strange. So maybe that's a good reason for them to go for the spring here if that happens. But they did approve. I mean, we shouldn't forget volleyball is going to be going on for many of the schools in our area. And, you know, like we said, a couple of those that took the fall one off can play soccer and field hockey. I'm not sure how that shakes up for Winthrop, because they sort of started in the fall and shut down pretty quick. So I would imagine if they wanted to, they could probably do some soccer and stuff in this fall too.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. I think it's like,
I don't either.
I think maybe if you started, maybe it was with the caveat that, hey, you run the risk of, you know, you do it now or you don't do it. And if you do it now and you get shut down, that's it.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was like a certain number of games or something. I don't remember what the, you know, what the rules were. But hey, if anybody, I don't think the soccer police are going to, you know, write up Winthrop on charges if they play a couple games maybe. But you know, I could be wrong.
Hey, I got a quick question. So fall 2 then with football, does that end April 23rd, that weekend? Is that what you're looking at? Because it's 7 weekends from
That's
the 12th
correct.
of March. Okay.
Yep. So you'd
know,
be looking at that's 7 weeks, right? From the
Yeah.
12th to the 22nd, 23rd.
I think so. That's what I tried to look at on my
And
calendar.
they start practice 2 weeks before that. What is it, February 22nd?
That's right.
Yeah. That would be almost 2.5 weeks before.
2.5, yeah.
Gotta buy some warm clothes there, brother.
You know what I was
They better
struck
get some
by?
heaters in those press boxes. What'd you say, Bill?
I don't even know if there'll be press boxes open.
I know.
Yeah.
You know, it may just be for the clock and the announcer.
Yeah.
You know, and you certainly don't want to walk the sidelines. So invest in a good folding chair.
I don't know. You're going to have a choice. I mean, that's the interesting thing. If the press box is closed, you don't really have a choice, right? I mean, I don't know where they, you know, there's been some debate about the sidelines, if those rules include the media or not, you know, because it says like game day personnel with an official duty, right? So
Matt, that's you.
Is that an official duty or not? I don't know. I could argue that either way, but
I'll just hop on the live streams.
I could be appointed official statistician for about 6 Northeastern Conference schools this fall.
I got one thought here, because I don't want to retract to what we talked about 15 minutes ago here, but I was struck by their decision not to allow any practices inside, because now you think about this, football normally starts in August with those 2-a-days, August 90-degree days possibly, or 95-degree days. Who knows what they could be in August. Now you're going to be out there. It'll be 20 degrees. Who knows? If they're lucky, it'll be 25, 30. Maybe they'll get up to 40, but you'll have these practices in you know, who know whether the fields will be plowed or how they're going to be. If we have snow, we may have snow, you know, we may just have snow, but it's just going to be a total flip-flop of what football, you know, preseason drills might have looked like or whatever. So
yeah, the nice thing about football, I always think, is that the weather you know, changes a little bit every week, you know, as you go further into the season, and it usually gets cooler, but once in a while you might get a you know, what is that old phrase there? Indian summer. You get one of those days in like mid-October where it's, you know, 60 degrees on. It's like, oh man, this is awesome. I mean, I wear shorts most of the time anyway, but you're not going to have any of those days in the spring. I mean, it's going to be, even if you go right to the end of April, you might be lucky to get a 50-degree game in there at some point near the end of the schedule. So it'll be different for everybody. And we talked about, I mean, I think Willie brought this up way back in September, but this is really going to, you know, have more of an effect on game planning, I think, than people realize. I think this weather is clearly going to be built for running the football, and teams that have a good line up front and can, run between the tackles, or a guy that's elusive enough to get to the outside. So if you run a wing tee or a spread, but you like to run the ball a lot out of it, maybe it's good for you. Maybe not so much for these teams that are pass happy. They're going to have to adapt a little bit.
Well, that's fall too. Gentlemen, we're moving right along here. We got, let me just jump to a couple of highlights, if you will, from this past week. Nick, we haven't heard too much from you, Nick Kukuru, but let's just pick up a couple of highlights from this past week, whether it be in hockey, basketball, or whatever from this past week.
Yeah, I mean, in my area, it's another milestone. It's just it's kind of been happening all season. Jack Costanzo got 100 career points last Saturday, 5-point night against Beverly. He's the 13th player, Gloucester to reach that milestone. Currently at 104 points. He's only played 48 high school games too, so he's really put up some big time numbers in a short period of time. So he could really climb up Gloucester's all-time scoring list if he sticks around next year. I mean, someone that with his talent's always a threat to go to a prep school. He's probably on their radar and has been for a couple years. But if he sticks around, I mean, there's only I want to say 3 players that have gotten over 135 points in the program, and he has a real shot at that.
Nick Giannino?
I can touch on some boys hoop. Just released the first edition of our local leaders, the stat leaders that have points, rebounds, assists, and total 3-pointers. It's kind of tough. I had to wait off a little bit because some teams have only played a few games. Players have been out. But we got to a point where I think most teams have played at least 3 games, and we were able to release that. The leaders right now, we got Jared Berry from Danvers. I know his team's only 1-2. He's been a scoring machine. He's averaging over 28 points, far and away the most thus far. He's only played 3 games. So some of these other teams have played 5, 6, 7, 8, even 9 games if you're Bishop Fenwick. So those will start to even themselves out as, more teams start playing more games. But Jared's in the lead there. Took in St. John's prep game on Thursday, and they beat a pretty good Malden Catholic team. That was a great win for them after coming off 2 close losses. So that's a fun team to watch. Raleigh Castanera there, the sophomore, he's been playing terrific basketball. I think he's second right now in scoring at 20 points. And then Aiden Callahan, the senior leader there, he took over down the stretch on Thursday, and he's averaging about 16 points, over 6 assists, gets a couple steals a game. So those two have really been carrying the prep, and they're a fun team to watch.
Let me interrupt you because,
but
Nick, let me interrupt you. John Walsh is coaching that Malden Catholic team now, right?
He is, and I noticed that. There's a couple times I was waiting for him to take down his mask. He had one of those ski masks on, and I'm like, I think that's John Walsh, and lo and behold, it was. But his team came up a little short. They'll get to play each other again next week. With the Catholic Conference, they're only playing each other, so they get to see each other at least twice a season, which is cool. And that was a good matchup. Malden Catholic's got some talent there as well. A lot of height, some shooters. So I think next game will probably be another close one.
John, formerly of Danvers High and then Central Catholic, but
yeah, what Nick, do you win 3 titles at Danvers?
Yeah.
So no, it was a competitive game. Moving along.
I heard from one of my moles.
Yeah.
And I have them everywhere. But one of my moles tells me that Jared Berry really gets after it in the gym. Like really hits it hard. And he's worked all off season to get ready. Clearly it's showing this season. I know we talked last night about the 3 games he's produced already this season point-wise. And showing great leadership tendencies for Danvers, running the floor and taking charge of the offense and all, but it germinates from his work in the gym. So kudos to Jared Berry.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it with just his physique. He's definitely gotten a little bigger, a little faster. He's been on the varsity team since his freshman year. He's now a junior, but his game's come a long way, and he's really the scoring threat for Danvers. So he's seeing double teams, traps, sometimes triple teams, box and ones, all different defenses thrown at him. and he's still finding a way to, get his way into the lane and draw contact or finish strong. And he can shoot the ball too. So he's been terrific for Danvers so far. Chris Timpson really likes him. I know he's a little bit hard on him because he knows how good he can be, but it's a guy that's could potentially be a 1,000 point scorer for Danvers. And it's a short season this year, so it's going to be tough, but I think he had close to 500 points as a sophomore. So he'll be right in the mix next year for that.
I noticed this week Morador from Winthrop girls basketball got her 1,000th point on Tuesday night. So congratulations to her. Awesome. Matt, you want to jump to some of the things you've seen, and then we got to go to Phil and of course get to the boys hockey scene as well.
Just quickly before we jump over to Matt, I know we highlight Hamilton Wenham a lot, and Nick, you saw them play Friday night against Manchester, but they got 4 guys that are pretty much averaging a double-double, which is kind of unheard of, to have 4 guys averaging over 10 rebounds and 10 points. Ryan Monahan, Ryan Hutchinson, Carter Coffey, and Marcus Norden. So those guys are getting it done in the Cape Ann League.
Bad at all. Not bad at all.
Matt, you want to pick up
Sure.
With some hockey?
Yeah, well, let's you mentioned Morador there for Winthrop, and interesting to see Danvers girls knock off Marblehead on Thursday night, and we got to give a shout out to Christina Yeba. She scored 18 in that game, and the whole Danvers Falcons team only scored 17 on Tuesday night. So, it's funny. Pat Blue, the coach, after the game was telling me, geez, if we don't score in transition, we're not going to score, and I don't care if you put that in the paper, everybody's going to know it. And then, of course, a couple nights later, they knock off a really good team and score 40-something points. And so that was nice to see. It confuses me a little bit as far as the hierarchy in the NEC goes. I thought Marblehead was, a team that might be able to challenge Peabody and Masco. And not that they're not, but, that's just an interesting, maybe Peabody's a little bit more ahead of the pack than I thought. If they're beating Swampscott and Danvers and smothering them defensively this way, so that's really interesting to see how that shakes out. And of course, the closest game Peabody's played was against Dorr and Winthrop, and Dorr had a great second half offensively in that game. I think so far this year, Dorr is really the only player that's been able to get going offensively against Peabody. So very interesting happenings there, I think, score-wise for the NEC girls hoop action.
Phil?
Sir, how are you? Okay, so what do we got? This past week, Kooks and I were both at the Talbot. Of course, we were exactly 72 inches apart at all times during the game. And we watched a pretty good game, Gloucester Marblehead. Marblehead handing Gloucester its first loss. Eli Feingold, junior winger for the Headers with a hat trick. Played very, very well. Will Scholl, certainly making his case, I think, as one of the top players in the conference. Not that was up for debate, I don't think, going into the season, but he had an all-around good game, goal and 2 assists, creates a lot of space for himself, draws so much attention to him that he opens up lanes for his teammates. Continue to be impressed by Jack Costanzo, really good on his edges for Gloucester. Scored a couple of goals, Kooks and near the top of the circles, right? I mean, he was making it happen from, 35, 40 feet out there. Nice wrist shots for him. And the freshman for Gloucester, Emerson Marshall, has 11 goals, Nick, I want to say?
Yeah, 11 goals in 5 games.
Yeah. Big boy, drives in that hard, strong on his stick, not afraid to get his nose dirty. He is also a player to keep an eye on. One of a number of good freshmen for Gloucester, but real good win for Marblehead. What else? Saw St. John's Prep play their second game. They were off for 12 days because of COVID protocols. I don't know if we talked about this. They're playing, instead of 3 periods, they're playing 2 halves, so 2 periods, I guess. 22 and a half minutes, and you really notice it in those last 3 or 4 minutes of those periods. Players' legs getting heavy, some icings, guys not getting the pucks that they may have been earlier on. So it's a different concept, and especially with the Prep hadn't played for 12 days and had only practiced once. They lost 2-1.
Is that a Catholic Conference thing, or is that an Essex Tech thing? I know some of the rinks, like the Medford girls, are doing that, and that's because of the rink. Is that a rink thing, or
no?
Or is that a conference thing?
That's Catholic Conference, and I want to say, Willie, that Middlesex is the same way. I think it's a couple of leagues that are doing it on the boys' side.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was, because I know there's a couple of other games at Essex Tech for our other schools next week. So I didn't know if it, because I know, like it says, the Medford girls are doing that, but nobody else in the Northeast League is doing that for girls.
Okay. Prep, 15 new faces in that lineup, the varsity lineup this year. And they're learning on the fly. I wrote it yesterday. It's kind of I didn't want to use a bad pun with a Catholic school, but it's like baptism by fire for these guys. They're just being thrown into the mix. There are no, the coaches wouldn't use this word, but I would, cupcakes on their schedule, teams that they should beat. They're all Catholic conference teams. So they're being thrown right into the fire, and they have to learn on the fly, and they're going to have to learn how to generate goals. That's the thing with this prep team. I mean, I think they have some talent, but it's a lot more of a workman-like team than having and I'll throw out some names from the past, Sammy Kirker or Brian Pino or Colin Blackwell, obviously now with the New York Rangers, or, even like a Brian Carabas or David Sacco. They don't have a natural game-breaking scorer, so they're going to have to find a way to get some greasy goals. This weekend, got a couple good games. Kooks, you're doing, was it Masco Gloucester tonight at Talbot?
Mm-hmm.
Which should be a good one. I'm doing Beverly and Marblehead tomorrow at Cronin and Revere. And the last time I was at Cronin, I got all the way there, and the game was canceled 10 minutes before a puck drop, so I hope that doesn't happen again. But Beverly has been kind of looking to find its footing, Bill. They are coming off of a 10-0 win against Saugus, in which they scored 8 goals in the third period. So they hope that's kind of a little kick in the pants to get them going a little bit and play the way that they're capable of. I think Marblehead is a different beast than Saugus on the ice this season, so they'll have their work cut out for them. But I'm expecting a good game there. And looking at the next week, we have more good games. Masco Marblehead on Monday that I believe Willie's doing. We're going to check out Peabody. Peabody had a good win this past week, too. Really good win over Saugus, where they had a couple of freshmen. Michael Ryan and Trevor Pacheco scored their first varsity goals. Matt Devon continues to play well for Peabody with a goal and 2 assists. So a good win for Coach Christian Wright and his team. I think I'm catching them against Beverly coming up this week. A lot of good games coming up. And lastly, we're just hoping that Bishop Fenwick can get on track offensively. They're 0-4. They're having a little bit of a tough time with it. I think they've scored, 5 goals, and Cam Martin has 4 of those 5 in 4 games. So they're looking a way to try to find something that can happen offensively for them.
Well, Phil, for your baptism remark, we'll forgive you for that.
Well, thank you,
Special
Father.
It's
Newell.
interesting. Phil mentioned the hat trick that Feingold had. It's interesting. I was looking at my notes today, and our girls' teams, nobody's gotten a hat trick yet as of this recording. So I don't know what's going on with that. Usually we have a couple by now, but it's a sort of a statistical oddity. No hat tricks yet. So we have our eyes out for the first hat trick, and there's been some high-scoring games. Got to shout out the Masco girls. They were winless going against undefeated Winthrop, and they pulled out an 8-6 win. They hung eight goals on a team that hadn't given up that many all season long. And I checked to see if there were any injuries or maybe the goalie got hurt or something, but no, it was the full regiment. Masco's been practicing hard, getting better. They hang 8 goals, and now they're in the win column, and they're off to the races. So
were they watching tapes of Edmonton versus Vancouver, 1986 or something?
Maybe,
Fire wagon hockey.
That could be. I heard there were a lot of rebounds, crashing the net, and
the hell with defense. Just go forward on offense. That's all right.
Exactly. When you've got a bunch of 8th graders and freshmen, I guess the more practice you have, the better they get. It's amazing how that works.
That's true. That's true.
Well, you guys have covered a lot of great local stuff. We really only have like a minute left, and I wanted to spend some time on the Pats or whatever, but we can get to that next week for sure. But I got to bring Matt in here. If I'm not mistaken, Matt, did you pick in September that it would be the Chiefs and Bucks in the Super Bowl? I think you're I had to say that.
Bring that up. You had to bring that up.
I mean, I'm telling you, I can't believe people didn't pick Tom Brady. They thought that this would go differently. I guess Mr. Kraft thought so too, and Mr. Belichick. But
like who?
I mean, I've seen this, as I said, and I'm not the biggest Patriots fan in the world, so I sort of looked at it objectively, and I've seen this movie so many times. Whatever team Tom Brady's on, the team on the other side is going to find a way to lose. And that's exactly what happened. I can't say I'm surprised by it. And, the other thing I thought to myself, and we can shout out our old friend, former colleague, Dan Harrison, because I was on the Peyton Manning wagon when he went to Denver, right? And I thought every team was dumb for not wanting Manning. And of course, he went there and had great success. Took him till year 2 to get to the Super Bowl. And I said to myself, well, Tom Brady's better than him, so he's probably going to do it in year 1.
Very good. Well, we wanted to give you a little shout out, Matt, for that. And
I don't know if they're going to beat I picked them to beat the Chiefs in the preseason. I'm not totally sure if that's going to happen or not, but
is the line like 3 or 4? Did I see? That seems awfully low.
That
I think it was 3.5 last time I saw it. I'm not betting against Tom Brady ever again. And I'm never taking Aaron Rodgers ever again either.
Still the only one to go shot for shot with Mahomes in the playoffs.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Get your squares, your rectangles, your triangles, your rhombuses, whatever. Make sure you get those before Super Bowl Sunday.
Well, it's also crazy because the game is never going to be over, right? I mean, Brady came back from 28-3. Mahomes comes back. I mean, so if it's even if the Chiefs are up by 17 or going into the fourth quarter, I mean, how can you feel comfortable? Or if the Bucs are up by that much, how can you feel comfortable? What they come back from down last year in the fourth quarter, 10 or 12 or something?
Hey, down 11 with 7 minutes left, and they scored 21 points.
If I'm remembering my stats correctly, the only 2 quarterbacks that have come back from double digits in the fourth quarter in the Super Bowl are these 2 guys, Mahomes and Brady.
I think you're right.
So doesn't get any better than that. I'm going to be glued to the TV as like a football junkie. It is a great game.
Leonard Fournette, 4 touchdowns. Why not, right?
Underrated pickup, and I got to shout out our good friends in Pittsburgh. They must be pretty miserable to see both Brown and Bell in the Super Bowl together.
True. And Brown's going to be healthy, right? He's coming back, so.
I know that breaks me and Phil's heart as big Steeler supporters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why Phil's wearing a black and yellow hat.
Gentlemen, on that note, we'll stop. We'll come back. We'll revisit that next week, but we'll check in with you again soon. Have a great week.
Thank you, Bill.